Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to another edition of the Insiders. Fitz and Gills and Coles and Clents. That didn't quite work. Clint doesn't work with that at all. At all. No Big B today for a good reason. I forgot to remind him. But I did get in a good nap. So I think that all evens out. We can all agree on that. Kansas State getting ready for the Big 12 tournament. The women exit the Big 12 tournament. And baseball, well, Cole's going to tell us all about it. And also is K-State women's basketball about to lose its coach. We'll get into Jeff Mittie and possibility of the Missouri job a little bit later. But let's start with that Big 12 men's tournament. I should have brought up a bracket here. Did I think of bringing up a bracket until this moment? No. Clinton, I just want to start with you. I'm fascinated with this now with the 16 schools and how all these pieces are going to fit together. Will the Iowa State magic be dampened somehow by running into an Arizona? I don't know, but it's going to be fun to find out.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and a lot of teams coming to Kansas City, so it's really good for the city as well. But it's going to be very competitive, and as we all know in the Big 12 tournament, I mean, anything can happen. You kind of look across the board of all the schools, and I think really anyone can win. I think obviously Houston's the favorite. I mean, Houston's only lost one game in the conference, and that was in overtime by 1 to Texas Tech. But I think everyone else is kind of right there. Talking about us in Kansas State. I mean, we've proven we can play and beat anyone. Like I said, outside of maybe Houston, and we wouldn't see them unless we meet them in the championship game. So it should be a fascinating tournament. Should be a lot of fun. Hopefully the fans come out, not just for Kansas State, but for all the teams. It makes it so much fun having all the schools there and all the fans for every single school.
Cole, I don't know if it's conference strength or weakness, but outside of Houston, because I think they're clearly the best team, and Texas Tech's playing really well right now too. Outside of maybe those two, I can't predict any of these games. Iowa State's been on a crash that, maybe they solved it at K-State, and other teams have been up and down. K-State's certainly been up and down, proving, as Clint said, they can beat anyone and, well, lose to anyone because they've just lost to Arizona State recently. It could be chaos, and it could be wonderful.
I think that's what makes it fun. And, covering the women's tournament, even if I was only there for about a game and a half, it really, Kansas City shows out for this tournament. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so awesome. And with the way that it's structured this year, like, guys, I know we're going to get into it, but I'm really excited to see what is more important. Is it getting hot or is it having fresh legs? Because, I think it's pretty clear that the teams who have to play 5 games in a row, if they were to do that, would be at a little bit of a disadvantage.
A lot.
But on the other hand, I almost think the teams that don't have the double bye and just the single bye, they might be better off. And I feel like when you are able to kind of get into a rhythm, like let's take the K-State side of the bracket, for example. I think we can all agree that Texas Tech is a very good basketball team. But would it shock anyone if K-State or Baylor, I think people would be surprised if Arizona State beat Texas Tech, but they almost did in Lubbock, right? I don't think anybody would be shocked if any of those teams moved on to, what would that be, the semifinal round on Friday? Because if they're playing hot and Texas Tech is yet to play, like, to me, there's a little bit of an advantage, just a little bit, to actually getting some games in before that double bye. And Clint, I know we'll talk about this, but I just feel like, if you're K-State, as much as you wanted to have to play on Wednesday and not on Tuesday, getting those first game jitters out of the way against a team who that you can compete with, who you've already beaten this year, and who, let's be honest, guys, that was a sour taste. That left a sour taste in their mouth. I think if you want K-State to go on a run, it's set up perfectly for them to do that.
Agreed. Gills, your overall thoughts on this tournament bracket? You'll be in Kansas City for us. Just talk for about, 45 minutes. Thanks. Go ahead.
All right. I'm excited. It's always a lot of fun out there. And I know this K-State team is not as good as K-State teams in the past, but Cole, to your point about getting hot, I think it's going to be very important for your Moby, EK Garukas of the world and David Castillo. Buddy Rich, we'll see if he gets in or not. But, CJ Jones, right? It's really going to come down to the depth, and can Kansas State sustain fresh legs throughout this tournament. We've seen it. Kansas State can hang with anybody, and I think it is as favorable as you could maybe imagine when you just look. You don't have to touch Houston until the very end, right? So you're on the other half of that, just in that regard. But, you're going to have some depth, because we saw it last season. K-State had a pretty impressive win over Texas, right? And then Iowa State just kind of had more energy and more gas in the tank as K-State was playing 24 hours later versus a rested team. So that matters. And, Cole, I get what you're saying. I'm not going to disagree. If you can get really, really, really hot, then it's an advantage. But if you just kind of go through the motions, beat Arizona State by 6-7 points, it doesn't, hold the same value. So it's, I think Arizona State's shorthanded. Obviously, BJ Freeman, we saw him. He was dismissed from that team right before K-State played them in Manhattan. And then Jaden Quaintance hasn't played actually since the game in Manhattan either. So we'll see where that goes. But, K-State was without Coleman Hawkins that first time around. That was the first game without Coleman. And I think you saw a team that was shell-shocked. Now it's frustrating to have one player have such a significant impact on your team. But we saw this team get better without Coleman. And then obviously when Coleman's been back on the court, right, you go out to Cincinnati and you win. And I know Iowa State on Saturday isn't pretty, but I don't want to say the loss in Manhattan was the fluke, but I would look at the game in Tempe and you're going to get more of a battle, a competition that's similar to that and not the one that you saw in Manhattan. Arizona State, that was the lone win that this team has had since the calendar flipped to February. It's been a long time, other than that Kansas State win, since they've won a game. So it's easy to rally kind of when a teammate, I don't know if there was bad blood or anything, but you lose a teammate. Sometimes teams just get, rally around that and go out and win. Whereas K-State had to learn to figure out how to play without Coleman Hawkins. So I wouldn't put much stock into the loss in Manhattan. I would look at what K-State was able to do in Tempe in that road victory that they had earlier in the year.
Yeah, I saw someone post that they've got 6 scholarship players supposedly for tomorrow. That seems like a bad plan. I wonder if Quaintance had such a good game in Manhattan, he just retired. I'm 17. I'm out. I'm going to save my knees. I'm done. I just lit up that K-State team. Guys, we're going to talk about who we think will win and why in a little bit. So put that in your brains if you want to start processing that. But Clent, how far do you think K-State can go and will go? 2 different questions here.
Yeah, well, I think it lines up pretty favorably, at least the first 2 games. Obviously against Arizona State, you win that. You play against Baylor, who, I thought we played pretty well down in Baylor. And we obviously didn't win that game, but that was one of the games where you could kind of feel the tide turning for us. And so I thought we played really well. We guarded them really well. We forced them into they had a pretty bad first half. They missed quite a bit of shots, and they ended up making some in the second half. So I think that's a game that, we should be right there to be able to win as well. When you get to Texas Tech, Texas Tech is very versatile. Obviously, they have the Big 12 Player of the Year and Newcomer of the Year and JT Toppin. He's top 3 in rebounds, points, field goal percentage in the league. They like to play really fast. They can score the ball really well. And here recently, we have not scored the ball really well in our last few games. So I think that's one where for us to be able to get past them, I think we're going to have to be able to shoot the ball better than 2 for 19 or whatever from 3. We're going to have to match them on that end as well as take care of the basketball. So I think that will be a tough game for us, if we make it that far. But if we get past them, I like our chances of getting to the championship. So, I think that's going to be the key game. And you pass them, you either got Arizona or KU or UCF or Utah, and I think we can play with any of those 4 teams and beat them in Kansas City. And then you're looking at Houston. So I really like the chances there.
Yeah, I like everything you said except looking at Houston because they're so much better than everyone else, in my opinion. Cole, your thoughts. How far can they go? How far will they go?
Well, I think, Clint, we're sitting here talking about that Texas Tech game, and to me, that feels like one of those games, and even the Baylor game, where if this team has won the last 2 games, it would be very hard to pick against them because essentially what it would look like is in any other normal year, a team that's playing in the championship game, right? This is their 3rd game in 3 days playing in the championship game. Would they have some probably not very, I don't want to say healthy guys, but maybe a little bit of tiredness going on? Absolutely. But you look at what Texas Tech, they will not have played yet. And so they might be fresh, but how are they going to come out and play against a team that has been executing very highly the previous 2 nights? And so it really wouldn't surprise me if K-State really, I'll say this, guys. I think K-State's going to win tomorrow night. And if they go out against Arizona State and look like a team that we've seen, I'm not even saying that 6-game winning streak, the team that played against Cincinnati, the team that played against Colorado, where really you knew, into the second half that the game was pretty much over, I think they'll go and they'll beat Baylor, because I do think that they'll be fresh enough to hang with Baylor. The question is, are they going to be able to guard Edgecombe? I don't know. They didn't do a very good job of that in Waco, but we've seen K-State and specifically Jerome Tang have Scott Drew's number. Let's not forget that. And so I really think this team's going to win 2 games. And, you go line it up against Texas Tech, you roll the ball out there, and maybe you play well. Like, it's a long road, guys. Like, there's no doubt that K-State has to go on a long road. But again, I've said this a million times. It wouldn't surprise me if this K-State team surprises everybody and goes on a run. Would it also surprise me if they lost against Arizona State because somebody got in foul trouble or they weren't hitting their shots? No, it wouldn't. I think it's more likely they go on a run than they lose to Arizona State. But it's going to be fun, and I think that it will. This K-State team will not go away quietly. I'll say that.
Okay, that's an interesting line right there. I'm not sure about it, but let's go to Ryan Gilbert. How far will they go, and do you think they can go?
I really like K-State's chances against Arizona State. That's not a hot take at all. When you look at everything that's going on with that program, Kansas State has proven that it can compete and give itself a chance to beat Baylor. It's done the same with Texas Tech. Obviously in Waco, second half things didn't go as planned, but K-State had a lead after halftime, right? So you go to Texas Tech, you didn't score for the final 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. You had that one in the bag. What I'm getting at here is, right, that half of the bracket, Kansas State, you go, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Of course, Houston, 30-point defeat, but BYU on the road as well. BYU's on the other half of the bracket. So you don't have to face the 2 teams that you haven't shown that you can compete with, right? Everybody else, even in the losses, K-State's been, in those games. And so that gives you hope, right? When you look at, obviously, with regards to Baylor and Texas Tech. And guys, Baylor's, if the season goes on for 5, 6, 7 more weeks or games, right? 2, 3, 4 more weeks, I'm not sure if Baylor's maybe going to get into the tournament. They're just stock seems to be not drastically falling. It's not crashing, but it's just steadily on the decline. They had a pretty good non-con. I know they beat St. John's and played some tough teams, but in Big 12 play, it just hasn't gone as planned. So absolutely, man, I think you can compete with Baylor, but it's kind of like I said earlier, man. I don't want to say K-State has to shoot 50, 60% from 3-point range, but you have to get hot. If you just get by Arizona, that is not going to give you enough momentum heading into the next game. You've got to go out and make a statement to the entire league that you can go out and compete and get hot and do what you want to do, run the table. Again, I'm not saying you have to go make every 3-pointer, but Clent, it was 2 of 21 from deep, from 3-point range against who was the last game? Iowa State. I try to forget about that game. And it's the last, I wrote about this. I forgot. I mentioned this, I think, on our podcast too, Fitz. It's one of the last 8 games, K-State has shot better than 33 points, 33% from 3-point range. That's just not the formula to win consecutive games in a tournament. You can win games if it's on a Wednesday and then a Saturday and then a Tuesday, right? But to get hot game after game, day after day, you have to put the ball through the net, in my eyes, from 3-point range. You got to get hot. You've got to be the team that is just riding the wave like an NC State did last year. I'd have to look at their 3-point numbers, and you get what I'm saying. But Kemba Walker from, 10, 15 years ago, they won their conference tournament. I think they won it all, right? After that. Mm-hmm. Get hot and don't just squeak by your opponents. You've got to win in convincing fashion, especially against Arizona State.
And I'll add to that, Ryan. I think the key for getting hot is Brendan Hawson. I mean, to me, I'll use a baseball analogy here, right? If he gets hot, then it's like a hitter. That ball becomes the size of a beach ball. And there's a reason why, baseball players, in baseball, you play every day. And if you're hot one game and you're hot the next game, well, then you're officially on a hitting streak. And so to me, it feels like if Brendan Hawson can get some threes to fall against Arizona State, in K-State wins that game, then they go into Baylor. then you're starting to look at a guy whose confidence is just growing and growing and growing. We know he doesn't lack confidence, but it's undeniable. He's passed on some open shots recently for whatever reason. Coach Tang talks about how he has the green light at all times, and quite honestly, for good reason. He's one of the best three-point shooters in the country. He just needs to see a few go down, and if he can do that, then it really opens up the floor for other guys, because if they collapse hard on him, then somebody else is going to be open for an open shot.
Yeah, I might turn off his green light from 30 feet if there's time left on the shot clock.
Yeah.
He almost killed a photographer.
Tang did say he told him to shoot that, but
He did say
it's
that.
funny, Cole. I was watching
Really?
last night. Yeah, and in the post-game presser, he mentioned that. He said that was on him. But last night, St. John's and K-State highlights came up on my recommended videos, and I was watching. I just rewatched that one, and great example, man. Brendan Hausen I think he made 7 3-pointers in the first half of that game, and then you lose it by like 16, 17 points. To your point that you made, Cole, that opens up the floor for other guys to get involved and hit some shots. And in that game, Rick Pitino's plan in the second half was slow down Brendan Hausen. They did. Nobody else was able to step up. So Brendan Hausen, I think he can absolutely get hot. But, I mean, these coaches in the Big 12 are smart. They're going to hone in on that if he's putting the ball through the net. Doug McDaniel, Max Jones, Coleman, everybody top to bottom is going to have to hit those shots. But I agree, man. It does start with Brendan Hausen.
Okay, I'm going to talk to Clent for a while. You guys just sit there and look sexy.
Okay.
So I know it's hard to do. Clent, a couple things for you as a former player. First of all, and also a guy who's coached a lot of basketball, when you have a player like Brendan Hausen, that can get really hot, and now the defenses know you can't leave him alone. You can't sag off of him. How do you make use of that, even if he's not shooting the ball? Because it's a threat that they have to account for defensively.
Yeah, it is. And when you have a guy that can put the ball in the basket the way that he can, his spacing on the floor helps other guys like Doug McDaniel, like Coleman Hawkins, be able to drive the basketball, get into the paint, because you know that they're not going to leave Brendan out there at the three-point line. But I also think you have to utilize him in ways of screening. And then you see one of Tang's go-to staple plays is a cross screen. Hausen setting it for Gasson, and Gasson's getting the catch underneath the rim for a bucket. And I think we can utilize him more so in those kind of packages, because they don't want to help off of him, right? So if you utilize him in screening action, I think it's really can help everyone else on the floor get open, or also help him get open, because they do help. He's able to then step out and get a catch and shoot opportunity, or pump fake and try to get to the free throw line. So anytime you have a guy that can shoot it the way he can, you can utilize him in multiple ways to not just get him open, but to help get other guys open, or space the floor where then guys have the driving lanes and driving angles to be able to get into the paint, which just opens up the offense a lot more.
One of the things I want to see from Hausen a little bit more is kind of feeling space, understanding that if my defender looks away, I slide 2 steps away. And it's going to take him a little bit. He kind of locates and stays, and it drives me a little crazy at times. Like, Brendan, they know you're there. They're not going to forget you're there in the corner. They're going to keep up with you, maybe wander off that spot. Question number 2, Clent, you've played in big arenas. A lot is made of the depth and the ability to shoot the ball. A lot of college arenas are pretty big too, but there is something different about these multi-purpose huge arenas that makes shooting a little bit more challenging. Can you help define that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not used to shooting in those type of arenas on a consistent basis, right? And so during shoot around is when you really got to get a feel for just the environment, and kind of the spacing on the floor is a little bit different. And it's exciting. You're gonna come out with a lot of energy because you're excited. You're playing on a big floor, and we're gonna have a good crowd there. But there is definitely some getting used to, for guys that have not played in an arena of that size. Now, one of the good things for us, right, is K-State plays a game in there every year.
Yep.
And so they played one in there this year against Drake. And then, man, Drake, those guys didn't have any issues shooting the basketball. And so, we got to get acclimated pretty quickly. And then hopefully our guys can understand the depth, behind the basket, and then be able to get acclimated pretty quickly to that. Another thing that I wanted to just mention, and you kind of talked about, with Hausen is, and you mentioned him spacing and being able to kind of read where his defender is at. And one of the easiest things you can do on offense is open up a triple gap. And so basically you kind of clear the floor to one side, you put Hazen in the corner, and they're not going to leave Hazen. Like, he's in the corner, right? But if you clear that whole side for someone like Doug McDaniel now to get down to his right hand and you put Gasson underneath the goal, I mean, the defense has to make a decision, right? Because Doug is so quick. Now all he has to do is, in and out, or a simple move crossover, get to his right hand, and he should be able to get downhill and get to the basket at a pretty good rate. And so it's different things you can obviously do, there to utilize Hazen as well, that will help Doug become more effective and efficient. So when you're not shooting well, I mentioned that because when you're not shooting well from the outside, you have to find ways to get the ball in the paint. Guards have to be better of getting in there. Max Jones finishing through contact, Doug finishing with some of his, circus kind of shots and things. And we're definitely going to have to score in the paint in this next few games.
Well, Ryan Gilbert, I know you're unaffected from, arena to arena and how you shoot the ball. You're bad no matter where you're at. But you have taken a chore to school from what I've heard out at the rec. So you're well schooled on all this. What's K-State got to do to get out of the shooting funk? This is not a great team, but when they get assertive on offense, okay, not particularly running sets or anything, they just get assertive. And this is what we're going to do, and we're going to attack you. This is a pretty good team, but they get away from that, Gilds. They let the defense dictate to them way too much.
I think the easy answer to your question is maybe just see the ball go through the net once or twice, man. And that can really get a team, that confidence up. And, they're wanting to take shots. They're not, sometimes I guess they might have shied away from a few, but by and large, they're taking, decent looks, right? They're just not connecting. And I wrote about this in 3 keys of the game. One of them was getting to the free throw line. In the 2 combined games against Arizona State this season, K-State's only had 18 attempts in both of those games combined from the free throw line. So, that's not abysmal, but I think you'd like to have that just be a little bit higher. And I understand that Arizona State's a lengthy, physical, athletic team, but you got to be tough down low, man, and get to the free throw line. And if you go there and you just see that ball go through, Clint, I'm sure you could agree that that's just does something to your brain, right? You see that ball go through the net. All right, let me go get one from beyond the arc.
Yep, there's a lot of truth to that. One of K-State's weaknesses, and there's a few, but the strength of this team is the consistency of David Gasson. I mean, he just comes out and he does his thing night in, night out, but he does struggle with length and size in the middle. And Arizona State has that. Cole, is that a concern here?
Well, it depends on if Quentin's plays or not. I mean, to be completely honest, he was a mismatch for K-State the last time they played. I would say that if K-State gets up early on this Arizona State team, it's going to be very easy for them to quit. And this Arizona State team is kind of just going through the motions right now. Like Brian said at the top, like they got hot against K-State. Jaden Quinton's hit 2 3-pointers. He had made 4 the entire season up to that point, and it was just one of those days for them. I think if K-State really uses that crowd, which I expect there to be a good crowd there, not only is it in Kansas City, but it's a 6:00 game. And so there is going to be a good showing there. There's going to be people who haven't been to a game all year who go out there. So if K-State can use that pseudo home game to their advantage, because there's not going to be any KU fans in the building. They don't play until the next day. So I would expect a majority of the tickets for the session to be Kansas State fans. If they can use that momentum early, man, it's just, I just don't see Arizona State mounting a comeback. Like, it's pretty easy to tell when K-State's going to have one of those nights, because within the first 10 minutes,
exactly,
they're playing really well. And if K-State has one of those games, man, like, watch out, because they think it spells more success for the rest of the week than it just does against Arizona State. We're going to find out a lot about this coaching staff, about this team, about the makeup of the locker room, and just to kind of see where they are right now. I don't think they're going to quit. I think the Iowa State game was as simple as those players knowing, hey, if we lose, we still got another game, and our focus is on Kansas City. And right or wrong, that's just kind of what happened as that game started to kind of drift away from them. But I think we'll be able to tell pretty early on Tuesday if K-State is going to have a pretty significant win or not.
It's K-State, Arizona State, 6 p.m. on Tuesday, as Cole just said. I like the 6 p.m. slot. That's actually, Gills, when I was covering, that was always my favorite slot, because then you get to work through another game and then you're done as soon as that game's over. And I think the crowd's more engaged in the evening session than the day session. And if you're watching, this is the K-State Insiders. And if you're on YouTube watching, you can drop some questions over here. It used to be available. Twitter used to feed the questions in, but I don't know. Ever since Elon became a big deal, he doesn't give us our questions anymore. I'm just kind of disappointed in him. I thought we were friends. Hey, Jay Schroed with this question. Do you give minutes to players to win 5 games in a row or 1 game at a time, Clint? This is a great question.
Well, it's 1 game, and if you can't win the first one, then
right,
the rest of them don't matter. And so now, if you have someone, if you get a lead, right, and you're obviously in the second half, and then maybe you can mix some things up and get some other guys in, and maybe shorten the minutes for someone like Coleman Hawkins, who's coming off of an injury, right? But if it's a close game, I mean, you're not thinking about the next game. You're not thinking about we need to try to limit someone's minutes. It's no, we got to go win this game, otherwise our season is over. So I think you really focus in on the 1 game, and then as the game plays out, that kind of determines what you do with the minutes for each of the guys.
Yeah, Gills, this team at its best plays an aggressive. That's 6 games. They were aggressive. They were attacking the rim. They were playing up tempo. I can't remember what game it was. They had to scrape Doug McDaniel up off the court at one point because he was so exhausted. I agree with Clint. You've got to go win this first game and then have a crack at Baylor, right? Unless there's a rule now that it doesn't matter about your record, they got to get to 500 to be in postseason play. At least that's been in the past, and that means you got to win 2 in Kansas City. You're 15-16 now. You can get to 16-16, so you better win another one to be at 17-17 if you lose to Tech. But I feel like they just need to go play their game and worry about tomorrow night. That's was always my philosophy, not with sports, but with Aggieville. I'll worry about tomorrow night. Tonight, I'm going hard.
That'll be me at P&L after the game, right?
Good for you.
Fair enough. I mean, I did say earlier that, you're going to need Castillo and Ugo and Moby. Like, if you want to make a deep run, yes, they're going to have to step up at some point, but I don't think you should not go in with that plan. If there's an emphasis on the bench getting a bunch of minutes against Arizona State, then, I mean, just subconsciously, man, like that just embeds the thought that, okay, we got to go win 5 games, right? But when in reality, you just have to win 1 and then another one, right? And just keep going and take it 1 game at a time. So, yeah, I'm with Clint. And that's a really good question, man. It's a real good question. I was looking at that for a while before it got posted on the screen, and it's a real good question, but you have to just take it 1 game at a time. And, what's the motto of March Madness, guys? So survive in advance. That's what you got to do here. And I know you, like I said, you probably don't want to survive this game. You want to be a dominant team against Arizona State. But first and foremost, you have to get this win. If you have to play, your starters 30, 35 minutes, then that's not ideal. But it's what you got to do to win. You got to do it.
Cole, your thoughts?
I think at some point adrenaline kicks in, guys. Again, I think the 6 o'clock time slot has major benefits. The evening session has major benefits because, not saying that the guys would be doing anything stupid or crazy if they were playing in the 11 o'clock games, but you get done with the 11 o'clock game and you got the rest of the day to do whatever. Go watch games, go mess around you play at 6 o'clock. And then you're going back to the hotel room, watching TV and going to bed. And you're doing the same thing over and over and over again because you look at the tournament, you look at the bracket, and K-State's going to play at 6 o'clock if they keep winning for 3 nights in a row. So, like, the routine is going to be consistent. And maybe that's I don't know what that was. Maybe that's the coach in me talking is like consistency is king. And, Jerome Tang's talked about it. He wants someone who's going to be consistent. It's like going to Chick-fil-A. You know what you're going to get every single time you get there. He's talked about that before in the past. Sticking in a routine, I think, is really going to help this group. And I don't know. I'm excited because they have nothing to lose, guys. Like, they literally have absolutely nothing to lose. If they go out and lose, people are going to say, okay, oh, well. If they win some games, guess what? It's just adds to it. They got nothing to lose. And I think that's probably the message that's being talked about in the locker room right now.
Cole, you bring up a really important topic I'd like to touch on right now. Are waffle fries better than other fries? Because I like them. I don't know what it is. Chick-fil-A just does it right. Maybe it's how they do them, but I think the waffling adds fun and flavor. Okay, let's talk about now who's going to win this thing, because I feel like Iowa State always is there. How can they be stopped? The children of the corn invade the Cancun of the Midwest on an annual basis, drink all the Busch Light, take a trophy home 50% of the time, and then come back and do it the next year. I feel like the things have changed. I don't think Iowa State's playing great basketball right now, Clent, but someone's got to beat Houston, or the answer is Houston, because they're the best team.
Yeah, and they're clearly the best team in my eyes. Iowa State always has a good showing. I mean, their fans show up for this tournament, and they're just as loud as any other fans in the arena. But Houston, I mean, just the way that Houston plays, they can beat you in so many different ways. Obviously it starts with their defense, and they're, one of the best in the nation defensively. They really get after you, but they have some guys as well. They can score the basketball, but they're so physical, and I think they just beat you up. I was talking to someone this past week. We're talking about, Kelvin Sampson teams, and he's like, well, did you play against, Ken? I was like, yeah, he was at OU when I was my first 2 years, I think, before Jeff Capel took over OU. And, those Kelvin Sampson teams are a lot like the old Bob Huggins teams, where it's a fist fight, right? And it's like, we're going to beat you up, where the refs aren't going to call a foul every single time. Like, we're just going to be more physical than you. They might call 5 or 6 of them. Then guess what? Kelvin's going to be on the refs, and they're going to stop calling them, right? And they got to try to even the game back up. And that's when they make their run, and they just kind of go win the basketball game. And so they're just so physical. I think they're the clear favorite. I do like Iowa State. I don't know why Gilbert didn't play in the game against us the last game. I have to go back and look at that. But they definitely need him playing to be able to make a run. But I do like them. And I think Texas Tech, they can score the basketball. So if they get hot from the outside, they're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the Big 12. If they get hot from the outside, then I think they'll be really tough to beat as well. But I have Houston winning it all.
Yeah, Iowa State really missed him against K-State. You could really tell. Ryan Gilbert, your thoughts? Who's going to win this thing?
Well, we did talk about this on our podcast, Fitz. It went up on Sunday evening.
That's a long time ago.
I know, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
I said Iowa State was kind of the best bet just in terms of the value and the payout, but Iowa State's odds keep dropping. I have it pulled up here, plus 500 on FanDuel. You guys want to know who's plus 1,300? Who's playing some pretty damn good basketball right now?
Don't take my answer. Do not take my answer.
I'm sorry, man. I like BYU.
Is that really what BYU is?
Yeah, that's insane. So that's some true value. I still think Houston is going to win it. They're by far and away head and shoulders the best team in the conference. I'm sorry, Cole, but BYU, that value is insane on BYU.
And how do I say this? I don't see gamblers pushing it down a lot because the fan base ain't gambling. So I think that takes away some of the insightful people. Maybe like, okay, we're going to bet on BYU and get those odds down. Cole, your thoughts? Who's going to win this sucker?
I'm not going to say Houston because, guys, like we talk about something to play for. If Houston makes it to the championship game, they've probably secured a 1 seed. If they make it to this, as long as they don't lose in the first round, they've probably secured a 1 seed.
Agreed.
And I think the culture of that team is not to the point where they'll just say, oh, we don't have anything to play for. But we've seen some Houston teams in the past, not exactly have the greatest showing in a tournament setting. I think that they're the best team in the Big 12, and there's a reason they've only lost 1 game. With that being said, we'll have to go back and look and see, but how many teams have won the conference tournament and the conference championship in the same year in the last 10 years? Like, I can't imagine that there's that many teams that have done that. So I actually think it's a pretty good bet to take the field. I don't think Houston's going to win this whole thing. Honestly, I was going to say BYU. But if I'm sticking with my theory about not having the double bye, keep your eye on Iowa State. Like, let's not count them out, because that's a team who, again, if they get hot, they can beat anybody. And we've seen them play with Houston in the past. I understand that they would have to get by BYU, but they had a great shot at Houston down there when they played them. So I think, put it this way, guys, I think it'll be somebody from the upper half of the bracket. I don't think anybody on the lower half wins it. And I do, if there's one team that has a chance to win it on the lower half, I would probably go Arizona. I think that they might be a team that can go on a little run. That seems like a team that could get hot. You know, we talk about that. It seems like a team that could get hot, but I don't see any way that a team like KU, I know we haven't talked about them. I don't see any way a team like KU makes a run this year. I know that might be a popular pick. I think honestly, guys, they could lose their first game. They really could. So a long answer, but I'm going to say, if I had to pick one team, I'm going to say Iowa State.
Yeah, guys, 2014, 2015, 2017, 2020 was canceled. And then 2024, like that's half in the last 10 years they've won it. So it's just, and they've won it with worse teams than what they have now.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll be interested. Ryan Gilbert's right. We just did this exercise on the PowerCat podcast way back last night. And I'm going to change my opinion. I picked Texas Tech there. I'm going to go with Houston because they can win 3 games with defense. We talk about this a lot in football, but not as much in basketball. And I'm sure Clent can, think of someone who fit this. There's just some teams that walk on the court and they look different. And that's Houston. They kind of have this biker gang mentality. Like they walk in the room and you're like, oh crap, we're all in trouble. And that's how they play. They dictate to you how things are going to go. They smother you with defense. They're aggressive on offense. Their coach is over there twisting the refs and pretzels. I think they're built for 3 games and win and be done and may not even be challenged that much. I think that's how much better they are than everyone. We'll see, and how that plays out for them going into the NCAA tournament. Sometimes you don't want to win your tournament. Gives you a little satisfaction right when you need to be hungry. I don't know. We'll find out. Ball starts, in the morning. In the morning, Gills. Are you going to be there bright and early, Ryan Gilbert, to cover that first game, to hang out with them and say, hey, I'm Ryan Gilbert from GoPowercat.com.
I'm going to get me a good night's sleep, head out in the mid-morning. But one more thing to add here.
Sure.
Whichever team can consistently, I don't want to say create its own energy, but outside of Iowa State, KU, State, right? You're going to have some fans there, of course, but in a neutral site like that, and especially I mentioned BYU, like all those newcomers, they've never even played in this. They don't know what it's about. Like Fitz, your DDs, you've talked about, people that want to move it out of Kansas City, which is ridiculous, but it's, we talked about this earlier. It's a different venue. It's a different sort of environment. I'm not going to lie. I never really watched the Pac-12 tournament, but I highly anticipate this being a more lively atmosphere than that.
It's interesting because most fans of the Pac-12 didn't watch that tournament either. But you know what, Ryan Gilbert, if you sent me to cover a tournament in Las Vegas, a conference tournament, do you think I'd make it to the games?
No.
Yeah, that's exactly. I don't need Las Vegas. We'll get into that hopefully a little bit later in the show because that is a topic I've kind of beaten up on and still very interested on. This effort to move the tournament from teams that have never been there. And of course, BYU was involved last year. I don't even want to say BYU travels. They just have fans everywhere. And I think they'll be represented pretty well from their church membership. And that's cool. I like that a lot about them. Okay, let's talk about women's basketball. Clent, the K-State women are struggling a little bit right now. They blew UCF off the court, and they played well against West Virginia. But, boy, this is a bad time to lose your momentum. And maybe Aoka Lee will come back. But bringing back a player of that stature that changes the way you play and have to play, that's got to be a real challenge for a coach.
Well, and I think it's been a challenge just all year. One, playing without her, obviously with her injury. And then, trying to bring her back and then not playing. I mean, like you mentioned, it changes your whole offensive philosophy, your whole defensive philosophy, because defensively you want to funnel everything into her, right? Like hey, we know we have her back there. She's going to change shots, make things tough. Offensively, it's like, yeah, she has to have touches on at least every other possession. We got to get her the ball. If not, every possession she needs to touch the ball, and you can play out of that. And teams have to guard you differently because of her presence and her size and what she can do on the basketball floor. And so it makes it really challenging for Coach Mitty when you have a player of her stature and you're with her, you're one team, and without her, you have to play totally differently. And not only for him as a coach, but even the players, because, they're used to saying, okay, well, here's where we're going to get our shots. We know we can play inside out. They're going to double her like all teams do because they can't guard her one-on-one, which makes it so much easier for everyone else versus she's not down there. And now, other players have to kind of create their own offensive opportunities. Which makes it a little bit tougher when you haven't had to do that the last 4 years, right? And so 5 years. So it's a tough situation, for Coach Mitty. It's tough for the players. What you hope is, obviously we know we're a better team with her, and so we're hoping that she can be on the floor. I think, with her and if she can, be semi-healthy, we can obviously still make a run. I think without her, it just changes the full dynamic of what we can do on the basketball floor.
We won't find out if they have a home site until after the men all play. I can't remember do the women do selection on Monday?
Nope. Selection Sunday night.
Sunday night. So after the men. Very interesting. That's got to be weird for the women. They're done. They got a week to wait. They don't know where they're at, if they're going to be hosting. But Ryan Gilbert, I think where this team's at right now, they need a home site. They need that home crowd to maybe get them through 2 games and get them back on track with Aoka Lee and send them out into the world and off to the Sweet 16, which would be a huge step for the program because they kind of run into that barrier. But we don't know if they'll get a home site. We think they will based on attendance, but it's pretty important.
Absolutely. And you got to take what you can get at this point, and you've got to take advantage of that, though. Last year, K-State was able to win a game, but then dropped Colorado. You got that. You played yourself into that situation, and we're not able to take advantage of it. If you do get this here, you got to go out and win both games in Bramlage. And can I phone a friend here, Fitz? And
yeah,
Mr. Hanley.
Oh, he is down there.
You not even see him?
No, I didn't even see him.
I got you, Big B.
No, you didn't have him.
I like the outfit, Big B.
I had to do it. Of course,
like
he's in
the
the Steelers. You find a quarterback yet?
What's that?
Did you find a quarterback yet?
We did not, but that's okay.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
figure it out.
I know who Gilbert will want. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, we don't want him.
No. Big B, we're talking about K-State women's basketball maybe playing at home and having to wait, a full week basically to find out who they're playing, where they're playing. This is a weird time for women's basketball coaches trying to keep your team ready and not knowing what's ahead.
Yeah, the waiting game is – first of all, I like that they kind of separate the women from the men as far as giving them the exposure and have it a week early. I know it stinks having to wait that long to play again because even if you make it all the way to the conference championship game, what is it, like
a week?
Maybe 14 days or something like that, or 12 days that before you play another game, which can be an eternity. I get it. But I like that. But I think K-State, I was part of a K-State football team that got the advantage of going to the Fiesta Bowl in 1997 because they knew that we were going to bring 50,000 fans to Tempe, Arizona. Just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if K-State again takes advantage of getting a home game for the women, then I'm all for it. I am 100% for it. Not only that, it makes sense for everybody. Look, why go to a school when it's fairly close between the 4 and 5 seed, if it's fairly close, but if you go to that 5 seed, they're going to have 3,000 people at the game. That doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't make sense, and it's not a good look for anybody. Go where people are going to show up. Everybody make money. Again, I hate to talk about money, but that's the name of the game, and might as well. And not to mention, I'm not saying that K-State hadn't deserved it either. I think they kind of have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Cole, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will Aoka come back and actually be a substance? She came back for that KU game and re-injured herself after 5 minutes. A worst case scenario for K-State. Is she going to be ready to go? Yeah, I know it's guesswork, but
yeah, I think she is. I mean, everything that I've been told, everything that we're hearing is yes. And maybe folks don't realize this, but Oakley, she hurt her other foot.
Yes.
Like the foot that she injured in the Kansas game was her other one. And so she didn't have to have surgery on that foot. Whatever a non-surgical procedure is, I don't know specifics on that. I think she'll be ready to go. And knowing her, she will make sure she contributes in some capacity.
Yeah.
I was obviously at the game on Friday, and, she was as much of an assistant coach as anybody else was on that bench. It was actually really impressive to see in person, not just like cheering, but like actually coaching the post players. And so that was pretty encouraging to see. She was locked in. And if there's anything we know about her, it's that she is going to do everything she can to be a contributor. And even when she's on the court, like Clent was talking about, she's going to be ready to go. And, I know that there's a lot of folks who are pretty negative about this basketball team right now, and I understand it. They are a different team, and they have ran into some good teams, and it showed. When they beat all these other teams without her, it's probably because those other teams weren't as good. And so maybe we overestimated that when they kind of had this rough stretch of games that they've kind of ran into. But I think that can K-State be a 4 seed? Yes. Will they be a 4 seed? I honestly probably lean no right now, guys. Like a lot of the bracketology people, for whatever it's worth, have K-State on the 5 line. Maybe they'll look at what happened last year and say that there's going to be a lot of people that show up, and maybe they'll look at their resume with Oakley versus without her and say, well, she's coming back. Jeff Mitty's obviously been very outspoken about we are going to have Oakley. And if with her, they are a top 16 team in the country, even if she's 50%, because you're 50% better than what you were, or whatever percentage that would be. So I don't know. I think right now they're on the outside looking in, but we still have a week. And I'm sure there's going to be some debating that goes on inside amongst the committee. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're a 4 seed, but if I had to bet right now, they're probably on the outside looking in.
Well, I hope she's healthy. I mean, I really do. Just setting aside the outcome of the games, I hope she gets to play clean games where she's not in constant pain. She'll be uncomfortable for sure, but you got to play through being hurt. You can't play if you're injured. And I think now it's about being hurt, and we'll see if she can go. I know because I pulled a muscle in my back 2 weeks ago sitting on a couch. I played through it. And last night I aggravated it laying in bed. This is what happens to top tier athletes is we just get injured participating in our sports, like couch sitting and that kind of thing. One other topic about women's basketball I want to touch on, and I don't know if you guys have any opinions on this, but Jeff Mitty's name has come up with the Missouri job. It's been hovering around out there for a week or so. I've had people from Missouri contact me saying it's legitimate. Jeff Mitty said, I have not spoken with them, which is always, that little curveball. I haven't spoken with them. No, you spoke with an agency doing the search. Yes, we understand how that works. You spoke to an outside group. I get it. So I don't know what that says. It sounds like he's the front runner in Columbia, which can't be good for focus of the team. But he, again, seems like he's staying. I don't know where it's going. And K-State will have some interesting decisions to make if he does move on. But, fellas, that's the SEC money talking. This was a job that was probably underneath K-State before Missouri went to the SEC. And now with that SEC money he's getting around $750,000 or more at K-State. They're going to probably $1 million plus him. And it's hard to say no. Does anyone have any thoughts on this?
I do.
Go for it.
I mean, is that job better than K-State? Like,
I don't think so.
I mean, even if at this stage in his career, at this stage in his life, I can't imagine Jeff Mitty has more than 5 to 10 years left in the tank. I mean, this is his kids are all fully grown. He's
less tied to the community.
Yeah. I mean, that program doesn't really support any sport outside of football. I mean, when the men's basketball team was horrible, nobody was going to the games. And that women's basketball program is a train wreck. I mean, K-State's beaten them by 30 points the last 2 years. Would he want to get back into where he's from? I believe he's from St. Joe. I guess.
About that.
I guess maybe. I would be surprised if he ends up taking that job. I understand money's hard to say no to. I get all of that. And maybe he wants to move on because he realizes that life post Aoka Lee, Serena Sundell, and Jalen Glenn might not be as good as what it is right now. And if he decides that's what he wants to do and that's the reason, okay, then so be it. I don't personally think, no insider knowledge, I do not personally think he would take that job because he does have one of the best recruiting classes in the country. He does have a really good young core of players, and he has everything he possibly needs. Does he take a lot of schlack from the fans? He does. But when you take schlack from the fans, it means they care. And I don't know if he would get that same level of fan support at Missouri. As a matter of fact, I can probably tell you that he wouldn't.
That's all valid. Clent, do you have thoughts on that as a former coach? I would think the support your program gets, whether it's from the administration or the fan base, would have to be a significant role, and they just haven't had a culture of women's basketball in Missouri like K-State has.
Yeah, I agree with everything with what Cole said. I mean, when you as a coach and you're looking at a program and you're trying to decide, which program stacks up against each other, right? There's a lot of things you look at. One is obviously biggest thing is you got to have support, not only from the fans, but you got to have support from top down, right? From your AD, from the president, like those people, they have to support you, and that they have your back, and that, hey, they're going to give you some flexibility because as everything happens, right, there's going to be some good years, there's going to be some okay years, there might be a bad year in there, and do I have the flexibility to grow this program to what I want it to be and what I expect it to be? And so you have to have that. Obviously you got to have a place where you can recruit talent, and can you recruit talent to Columbia, Missouri? I don't know. Kansas State has proven you can recruit female athletes to Kansas State, and basketball players specifically. And so, you look at that and you say, well, that's prime. That's pretty good. As Cole mentioned, you have a top recruiting class coming in. So I think those two things are really big. And then you look at, the fan base. Is a good fan base? Do they follow the basketball team? Are you going to have people showing up at the games? Is it important to them? And I think with Kansas State, as you know, it is very important to our fan base. Our women's basketball team, there's tradition there, and that's a big thing as well. As a coach, is there any tradition basketball-wise? And there is, and so I think when you factor in all of those, from a coaching perspective, the only thing that can make you say, hey, maybe I want to look outside at someone like Missouri would be the money. That'd be the only thing. And unless it was, like I said, going back home as Bob Huggins did, he left Kansas State to go back home to West Virginia, and I want to go back home because that's where I'm from. It's the money, and a lot of people say money talks, but also when you're making good money, there's kind of two sides of it. Sometimes you want to make more, and sometimes you say, you know what, I'm making good money, and I like my situation more than the money, and so who knows, that's different for different people, and people have to make those decisions. But, I think Jeff Mittie has a really good, he's in a really good spot. I'll say that with Kansas State, and, he has a big decision to make in the future.
But the only other thing I'll add, if he wants to move on, why Missouri? Like, you've had all this success at Kansas State. Like, I just feel like, why would you want to move on? And, K-Ned brings up a good point maybe he thinks that this is the ceiling, that maybe they'll be able to get to a Sweet 16. Maybe he can't do anything else at Kansas State. Now, I don't think that the ceiling's much higher at Missouri personally. Maybe he does, but I just feel like if he wanted to turn this job into something else, I just don't understand why Missouri would be the one, unless, like I said earlier, that he's wanting to move on after post Aoka Lee and Serena.
Well, here's what I would say is, first of all, Clent hit it on the head. Money, and I know both of you talked about it, that money's a huge factor, but also let's not kid ourselves. It's easier to recruit to Missouri than it is to K-State. So if he can figure out and get in there to Kansas City schools and St. Louis schools and get them to start sending kids to Mizzou, that's an easier sell than it is to maybe get kids to come to Kansas State. Now, Clent's right. He's proven that he can recruit kids to Kansas State, and they have a history of bringing women athletes to Kansas State. I mean, that's just proven. But at the same time, it's an easier sell to get people. You're in the SEC. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a better conference than the Big 12. Not a ton better, but it's a little bit better. But if it comes down to money, plus he's from there, I don't know his story, but maybe he's been a Missouri fan his whole life. And maybe he was growing up. And it would be hard, regardless of where you're at or how many years you have left, if the school that you've always deep down loved finally calls you and says, hey, we want you to come be our coach, and they're going to pay you $500,000 more to go do it, I probably go. I mean, regardless of the situation, because I believe in myself and I think I can turn it around. I love the point about a ceiling, though. Sometimes if you hit a ceiling and you understand where your program is, it is what it is. I need to move on to the next stop.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see if he can break through that. He's got the team to do it to get to the Sweet 16 this year. Cole, before we move on to the last topic, and Gills, you know me, I want to keep this thing under an hour. We're going to blow right through it today. We're rolling. Before we move on to my final topic, give us a baseball update, Cole Carmody.
If you haven't been watching because you have been refusing to pay subscription service sites to D1Baseball.com, to FlowSports.com, now you should start watching. Is that good? I think that this K-State baseball team is really good. They weren't ranked this week. I think partly that's because they had those 5 losses early on, even though every single game they have lost, -1 to Washington. All the 4 games that they've lost have been to teams who are currently ranked inside the top 25. Like that is absolutely crazy. And so, yeah, this team is legit. I mean, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, they've got guys who Maximus Martin winning the Golden Spikes Player of the Week award, Big 12 Player of the Week. I mean, the guys who are the 10th best hitter on the team that they have would be starters. They'd be hitting in the middle of the order on previous teams. Like this team is just really good. They're different than how they've been in the past. And if they have a good week this week, they're going up and playing Creighton tomorrow, and then Omaha on Wednesday. I think there's a great chance they win both of those games. They come home with a 3-game series with Utah. If they can find a way this week to win 4 games, they'll be ranked inside the top 25 next week, and they are a serious threat to win the Big 12 this year and host a regional.
Man, you know what? In this era of weird names being used for kids, Maximus is a badass name.
It is.
Because, as you get older, you can just go by Max.
His nickname is the Gladiator, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's an ass-kicking name right there. I'm all for it. Speaking of ass-kicking, I'm ready to do it with newbies to the Big 12. Arizona fans have now followed in the footsteps of, I believe it was Cincinnati fans, who were appalled that this tournament was in Kansas City before they ever played in it. Arizona fans, you know what? I want to be clear. This is not the whole fan base. This is some very loud voices on social media are bitching about Kansas City, and they want Las Vegas. Well, first of all, as I pointed out in today's daily delivery, Clent, this arrangement with Kansas City goes through 2031. They just upped it right when we were talking about the Pac-12 coming in. Before anything had been done, they upped the contract for another 5-6 years. So it's not moving anywhere. But someone help me define how important this tournament becomes in the Kansas City area and how embraced it is by the city, by the fan bases, and by incredible attendance.
Well, I think that's what you see. And when I played, 1 year we had it in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
1 year we had it down in Dallas at the Airlines Arena, and it's not the same. I mean, they're nice arenas, but it's just not the same. And it's something about the central location. And when you bring teams now, even more so now, right, from the East Coast and the West Coast, and you're trying to find a central location, and you have a proven place where, I mean, fans show up, especially the ones around this area. I mean, they follow their teams and they really show up. We talked about it, right? It's money, right? And money shows here in Kansas City. People come out and fans are going to travel, and the ones that don't travel, some of them already live here and they show up for their team. And I think it's kind of a proven place where, hey, it's worked out. It's worked really well for the Big 12. They've made a lot of money, here in Kansas City. There's a lot of festivities. People really embrace it. I think the same thing with that is there's not an NBA team here in Kansas City, right? And so it really becomes, something that I think a lot of people look forward to, and not just watching their team, but also watching other games, right? I mean, you pay for I'm going to go watch K-State, obviously, and I'll stay and watch the game after that, UCF and Utah. I don't have a dog in the fight, right? But I'll stay and watch it because it's basketball, and we love basketball in this part of the town and this part of the country. And so I think it's worked out really well. It's unfortunate that some people want it moved, but it's not going anywhere, at least not anytime soon.
I'm not sure UCF and Utah, there will be a dog in the fight. No, you win. You win. Big B, should the Big 12 move the tournament to Pittsburgh?
I mean, actually, no. Pittsburgh, look, I love the Steelers, but as far as just a town in general, yeah, I'll pass on Pittsburgh. But yeah, I mean, look, it's the same thing. People just haven't experienced Kansas City. And look, who doesn't want to go to Vegas? Let's just be honest. Vegas is a good time. Don't get me wrong. But I still don't know that Vegas puts on a better basketball tournament than Kansas City. That's my whole thing. Is that, yeah, if you're going to go for the entertainment and everything else, sure, Vegas is going to be better. But if you're actually going to watch basketball and enjoy a basketball event and be right around the area where all the basketball is going on, I'm not sure you're going to beat what Kansas City has to offer. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. Kansas City is top notch. And I've been to all of them. I've been to the Big East. I've been to the ACC tournament. I've been to the SEC tournament. I went to the Pac-12 before when the Pac-12 was even alive. So sorry, Arizona fans. I've been to the ACC. I've been to all of them.
Wow.
And nobody is better than what the Big 12 is. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's just a fact. And that's a good thing. They upped it for a reason. They didn't up it because, oh, well, we'll just play here. Nobody comes. Nobody's watching. We don't want to deal with the hassle. No, they did it because of how well the tournament is actually put on and how much of a good experience it is for players, but more importantly for fans.
Hey, man, Cole, it's so popular in Kansas City, they sold the media seats. Yeah, I'm bitter. Yes.
I don't know, man. I just got an email here. I have to open it up, but it says I have lower level media seating. I have to investigate on this, but it might be a changes here, Fitz.
Breaking news on the insiders. But still, Cole, this thing's so wildly popular. They make tons of money off of it. It's well run. And as I said on Daily Delivery, if there's one guy in the world who would want to move an event to Las Vegas, it's Brett Yormark. He did it already with the football media day. And we're all out there. Yeah, this is cool. But why the hell are we out here?
Right.
We couldn't figure it out. I mean, like, why aren't we in Frisco, which it was supposed to be in Vegas again this year, and it's thankfully going to Frisco. But as soon as he saw the event in Kansas City, he said, okay, we're re-upping. This is the real deal.
I miss the days of the NAI basketball tournament going on at the same time. That was always so fun to go down there to Municipal, where they used to literally have every single game of the NAIA tournament. You could go buy a $5 ticket and sit there and watch 10 basketball games. It was absolutely legendary. But I mean, yeah, like there's just something about being down there in March and like going down across the street to Power and Light, which, you know, the businesses down there love it as well. Watching the games, even if, you know, you're going to go to the 6:00 game and you get down there at 2:30 and you have a few beverages and you have some food down there and you hang out with people, you make friends with people from all around the country. Last year I talked to people from Baylor. Like, I don't know. It's just cool, guys. And I'm happy that it's here, not just because I live here, but if I didn't live here, I would make it a point to come down here because it's a really cool environment. And for folks maybe who haven't been here, even if K-State's not playing, wear your K-State stuff and talk to people and have a good time because it really is an incredible experience if you've never been.
Gills, give me something here. Give me your thoughts on this whole controversy.
Power and Light is just freaking awesome. And
during
not
this
just
event.
the Big 12 tournament.
Yes.
Just in general, it's awesome. And
it is.
I understand there's cities around the country that have stuff that's very similar, but it's all right there. And Fitz, you talked about this on your DD, like how many hotels are within 1 mile
It's amazing.
of T-Mobile. And, you know, in Vegas, I know it's a strip, but that strip, I think it was K-State USC, Fitz. Me and you were there and you were freaking dying
He
by
about
the amount
killed
of
me.
walking you had to do. So it's just all there and it's just so perfect. And, you know, you've got everything you need. You got entertainment right across the arena, and then inside the arena, you've got the games and you can stay nearby. I mean, it's totally, you know, we're all biased here. Let's not deny that we are biased. And I'm from Kansas City. Cole, you are as well. Clint, you live there now, of course, but it truly is just an awesome experience.
and I've drank there a lot, so I'm almost like a resident. I look, yeah, we're all homers in that degree because we understand the event, and yeah, it's easy for us. I get that, but we'd cover it if it was in Vegas. We'd cover it if it was somewhere like Orlando or Pittsburgh. We would be there. You would be going. So that doesn't really matter to us. It matters to my budget, but it doesn't. However, there was a really nice post on X, and it was more than one post. It was, I don't know, 5 or 6 strung together from an Arizona women's beat writer who absolutely raved about this event, the support she saw, not just from fans, but from the people. Don't understand this. There's a committee in Kansas City that actually does a lot of things in promotion of this event, including shuttle service and all that. She just was absolutely blown away by the event, and I'm looking forward to fans coming to Kansas City and seeing it. But I'm a homer with Kansas City. I think that whole area is pretty cool. Although I've kind of outgrown Power and Light, Gills. I know you find that hard to believe. But
You've outgrown everything, man. Aggieville, Power and Light, you name it. You've outgrown everything. I
swear I used to be fun. I don't remember it, but I used to be fun. Guys, any final thoughts as we wrap up this one? Clent, I imagine you're like the rest of us, got a good vibe about the Arizona State game.
Yeah, I do. I think, we can come out and, as Cole mentioned, if we jump on them early, I think we'll see those guys kind of just, I don't want to say lay down, but I think we can have a really good showing and then get some momentum, right? And if we get some momentum, I think that'll be really big. One of the things that we talked about with Texas Tech and teams that have that kind of 2-game bye, and then we mentioned the first 10 minutes, when you get to that game, that is the most important part of that game, because teams that have a 2-game bye a lot of times come out and are a little bit sluggish, right, or a little bit slow, and trying to fill it out, where you have a team that maybe has 1-2 games and then they're ready to go, right, and have a little bit pep to their step and have that momentum. So if we can get by Arizona State, and obviously got to get by Baylor, and then have Texas Tech, if we start well in that Texas Tech game, then I think we'll have a shot of making a little bit of a run here. But it all starts with the first game.
Big B, what's cooking over at the Big 12 Insiders?
Tomorrow we're talking about the importance of the Big 12 tournament, just conference tournaments in general. And then we're also going to pick who we think is going to win the Big 12 tournament tomorrow. So it should be fun little show.
Could you have me on and I can pick a third team, and that will increase my chances of being right?
I hear you.
I know. That way I can say, look, the other two were wrong. I really felt like this.
I like it. I like
it. What's up next for the baseball team? You mentioned that earlier, I think. Omaha, Creighton. When are they home again after beating Bill and Mary?
This weekend. That's the Utah series is at home this weekend. So
Ooh,
get on out to Taunton. It's going to be a little chilly out over the weekend. Kind of stinks they're not playing at home this week. Obviously, the weather's amazing. But, I think those guys don't mind playing as long as they're winning. Utah is pretty good. The last time I looked, they were like 11-3. They haven't played anybody, so this will really be the first true test for them. But I expect K-State to come out strong. And like I said earlier, man, keep pushing, keep pounding, because this team has been really fun to watch. And if the basketball season is indeed over, obviously you still have the women, but this baseball team is worth investing your time into if you're a fan.
I agree. They're going to be fun to watch. And Gills, you looking forward to covering a little Big 12 basketball tomorrow? It's so weird having Tuesday games.
Right.
Just kind of being Gills, because you're a celebrity.
Tomorrow's my birthday, and I was really hoping they would beat Iowa State just to give me my birthday off, but Jerome Tang and company were unable to do so. It's okay. No hard feelings.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We're beating a dead horse here. I love going out to Kansas City. It's so much fun, and I grew up going to that, as a fan, and it's still just as fun. And I think your mark the last couple of years has given out like beers at the very end of the sessions. So I'm in the media room. Fitz, you missed out on that. I think me and Zach took advantage of that last year. Big B, I do want to end with this. Maybe you missed the discussion earlier about Arizona State, and maybe just since you follow the Big 12, closer than all of us, of course, with your show, put into perspective just the state of the program and how poor things are in Tempe.
I don't expect Bobby Hurley to be around. They lose. I don't care. They're going to lose in this tournament. I don't expect them to be around. They've quit. Clent didn't want to say it. He didn't want to say that they were going to lay down. I'll say it. They're going to, if K-State comes out first 8 minutes, Arizona State will quit. Plain and simple. They did the other day against Tech, and they were at home. and they quit. So they're ready for this season to be over. There's only so many times that your head coach can throw your team underneath the bus and just constantly complain about players. Same thing going on at Cincinnati. There's only so many times that you get to do that and players actually respond. Maybe you can do it once and they'll respond. You can't do it 4 or 5 times. And Bobby Hurley has done that. So if K-State just comes out with a pulse, literally, if they just come out with a pulse and act like they want to win, Arizona State is saying, guys, we don't want to play any more basketball games. Please beat us. And they'll win the game. I'm telling you right now, they'll win the game. If we don't win the game, it's because we have the same attitude as Arizona State does, which would be unfortunate.
Very good. Very good. Great show, guys. And I think we just came up with a new motto for the K-State Insiders. At least we have a pulse. So, Clent, thanks for joining us. Much appreciated. That's it for this week's Insiders. K-State, Arizona State, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Game is on ESPN Plus, so you got to have that to watch it. And we'll see if the Cats can advance into the bracket. They got to win 2, in my opinion, to be an option for anyone's postseason. Let's see if they can do it. Baylor awaits the winner. We appreciate you watching.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders.